Attention all subjects. Do you all like weeb shit? I like weeb shit. Do you like role-playing games with action? I like RPGs, bitch. Do you like both? Well, the Warlord has provided a treat. So shut the fuck up and watch this presentation, and have a nice day.
Sudeki, an action role-playing game produced by England-based studio Climax Studios and published by Microsoft, back in the good old days of 20th of July 2004 for the good old original Xbox. And then a year later in 2005, or more precisely, March 25th, 2005, was later ported to Windows PCs. Finally, it was later digitally distributed through Steam and GOG in 2014. Yet sadly, it was later dropped from GOG on July 28th, 2020. Now this game is bloomin' interesting, and that is for several reasons which I will state now. Not only was this Climax's first ever take on the role-playing game, more in line with Japanese role-playing games than usual, not just that, but the Japanese influences continue with the artistic design being drawn, no pun intended, and heavily inspired by everyone's favourite Japanese cartoon-style anime, though slightly toned down to make it more appealing to the Western audience. And since this is an action role-playing game, this game places a great and over-exaggerated emphasis on action to the max, with highly anime-inspired over-the-top special attacks filled with the over-the-top animations and screen effects. This, alongside the more standard fare of managing your party in the many battles throughout the game, as well as dungeon dwelling and looting. And people love this game! Many have great and fond memories from playing this back in the day, and many still are hoping for a much-wanted sequel to this beloved game of the past. And as it stands in ratings on Steam, it currently stands, as of this recording, at quite a respectable 89% overall. Nice. Personally, I never played this game until very recently, but I do remember back in the ancient days of the mid-2000s. Those massive weeby eyes. Yes, weeby is a word now, staring right back at me, all giddy and excited as she looks into my eyes and toasts my soul.
I'll toast your soul!
Anyway, dragging this intro for a bit longer than necessary, let's delve into this review and appreciate this game, including Elko's lack of understanding of the currency system,
What in the heavens is this?
Tal's attempt in priesthood,
I praise you, Tetsu! With conviction, man. You're talking directly to God.
and let's all appreciate and applaud Ailish's and Buki's amazing asses. Let us get into this shit. Good shit, I mean.
Today is another beautiful day to learn the art of killing.
Now the first thing that many people will notice when starting up the game for the first time, on either the PC port or the original Xbox, by the way, I am reviewing the Steam version here by the way, is just how damned pretty the visuals are. And it has aged like a fine wine. Well, almost. Until you look at the other NPCs wandering around the map. I mean, they look fine, but you will notice sooner or later that most of them are just recycled character models. Yet other than that, it almost makes you forget that this game was made in 2004. Without doubt, this is one of the strongest aspects of the entire game, in more ways than one. For the most part, you can see the main characters have an art style heavily inspired by everyone's favourite Japanese style known as anime. Drawing, no pun intended, from such artistic inspirations such as Nikki Broughton, Yoshitaka Amano, Nobutaro Yuki, and Youngtae Kim, the influence of the art is there. So much so, the art team, led by James Brace, eventually had to start moderating the anime factor to appeal to the Western audience. Yet, they kept some things that the West like, or dislike depending on your taste, about anime. The main characters of the game had to go through several redesigns and alterations, yet the vast majority managed to keep their original design visuals intact. Tal, the warrior of the main character's party, had the traditional anime warrior design, including the stupid long hair and the unnecessarily oversized sword, yet the latter two would be dropped and moderated. Ailish's design of the cute anime princess would survive into the final game, though the character herself matured into something everyone remembers to this day. Elko by far went through the biggest changes of all the characters. Originally starting as an Arabian-themed archer, Elko's design eventually changed into the final scientist design when the idea of his arm injury changed the once archer into a cyber steampunk scientist gunslinger who is more inclined to settle the dispute of creationism and evolution with his own type of magic, the magic of firearms. And finally, Buki, the anthropomorphic monk, went through the least changes with only a few hairstyle changes, which you can also see in the gaming manual on the Xbox port, which is kinda cool. Now transferring from hairstyles to planets, the 3 worlds that the player will traverse throughout the 16-hour game are also equally beautiful to see, each to their own design and visual themes. At least in the first world of Haskilia, the most beautiful and visually vibrant of the worlds the players will travel to and from. It is very picturesque with bright, vibrant colours and looking idealistically peaceful with equally amazing skyboxes and picturesque views worthy of painting. The world is full of life and filled with 4 main settlements in the land that seem to prosper and barely have any problems in the world. At least ones in which the player can solve quickly through brief violence. The sleepy coastal village in
You right, Walter.
though being my personal favourite place for my affinity for the coast, is marred slightly due to a fetch quest which refuses to work, and angry fishermen.
Clip, claw, you're like a herd of elephants up and down this jetty. Shush, will you?
Illumina Castle, the seat of power for the Illumina Empire, filled with happy,
If you want to get ripped off, go and see Kamo.
friendly,
True, but you're ugly.
and useful individuals that will help you in your quest.
I've been told that the Echlorians caused the sun itself to darken.
The Temple of Shadani Mo, governed by a civilization of anthropomorphs of different species and designs. A group who is one with nature and their gods, yet is rustic and almost tribal in appearances and practices. Then there's Trazentia, an almost Orwellian and grey place of learning, science, Dutch, strangely sexualized robots, and getting lost on the winding paths of this technocratic realm. Yeah, I didn't like the place very much. Now, the next place is not much of a planet per se. It is more of a plane of existence. A place in between worlds. An existence purely seething in death, and is a realm for life between life and death. For more gameplay purposes, it is a roundabout to other sections of the maps. Like a real-world roundabout, the Realm of Shadows. This charming place is considered the holy place for the anthropomorphic people. A place of rest and afterlife for Shadani warriors. Yet, it is a grim and necromantic place filled with undead man-animals, laughing skulls, teleporters to other parts of other worlds. The home of Felix Law, and a weapons-dealing Grim Reaper who laughs at people who do not bring back any souls in payment. A very unorthodox version of heaven, I'll admit. This place does look like something from a haunted house ride you would see on a fairground, or a stage prop from WCW's Halloween Havoc. But moving on to Ecloria. Whereas Haskilia is a place of happiness, sunshine, literally, and picturesque views, Ecloria is the mirror opposite of Haskilia, replacing pleasant day with an endless haunting night. Everything is grimmer, bleaker, the undead wander about plummeting housing prices planet-wide, and just to add to the ghosts, some monster-filled dungeons and barely any plant life, fire and brimstone also decorate this bleak hellscape called Ecloria. Even the names of the settlements of Ecloria seem morbid and grim. Signtime, Cathedral, Devil's Belch, Canyon, and so on. Dim and menacing, yet Ecloria is oddly familiar somehow. And there must be an obvious reason for why Ecloria is this way. Shh, that'll be explained later. Shush. But now we must move on from this planetary tour to reviewing something else. For this is a long enough transmission without discussing how good this old game looks. We must now discuss how this game sounds. I like the sounds of that. Speaking of sound... Wait, I did this before, didn't I?
Perhaps you could rustle up a display, please?
This isn't the circus, it's the army!
As previously I may have said that the graphics and visuals are one of the best features of the game. The sound is... well... let's just say it's a mixed bag of great soundtracks that set to the ambience just right, then being followed by forgettable dance music as you partake in the dance of death. Fitting. And some subpar voice acting.
I understand now that science is a product of nature. There is nothing here for me to fear.
Much of the music used in this game, mostly in the combat, is techno-infused dance music, which you would most likely hear in a rave in some dank, dark, underground dance club somewhere. It just lacks the impact of more traditional musical choices used in other games for combat. And even despite the fact the volume for the music was at full throughout my playthrough, it was barely audible over the sound effects of combat. That of grunting, weapons firing, spells being spelled, one-liners, and the player critiquing his/her own performance as he/she uses the wrong ability for the wrong situation. Again. And overuses the health potions for literal paper cuts. Again. Now, whilst it may seem that I am bashing the music for not being very good at all, and yes, that is true for the combat music, the same cannot be said for the rest of the soundtrack. The ambience is fantastic. Composed by Tom Colvin, the themes for each of the many stages you will traverse are masterfully created, and give the desired music that give the given area you are exploring. Either relaxing in a cozy coastal village, exploring an ancient temple to an old god, delving into a lair of a witch, or fighting a god, the musical soundtrack that plays in whatever map gives far more ambience and to some extent, mystery. Without a doubt, the musical ambience for this game is one of the best soundtracks I have heard from any video game in the last 30 years. It almost has a Mark Morgan and old school Fallout vibe to it, adding greater character to the maps with music by adding mystique, horror, or a sense of relief. And yeah, having a soundtrack like Mark Morgan's Fallout soundtrack is an extremely high compliment for video game soundtrack perfection. The voice acting in this game, however, is not so perfect.
Oh yes, your mother. My queen.
Yeah, I'm talking about voice acting now. Voice acting is also a mixed bag. While some of the characters were well acted, those being Jorgen,
Have you come to try it? Lay your skin on me. I can't get enough.
Elko,
Ah, professor, daar ben je. Elish, Bookie, wat are you doing here? Professor, u moet zich schamen. Op uw leeftijd.
Kamos,
Welcome to Kamos. No kids, no smoking, no drinking, no touching, and no credit! Now, how may I help you?
Queen Caprine,
I believe you were all brought together by Tetsu himself.
the others just fluctuate in quality, from either being overacted or poorly acted.
The Echlorians will darken our skies again soon. Now, we don't understand their motives, but it's down to us to try and stop them from entering Illumina.
We came for the crystal. The professor here has been helping us with our inquiries.
Just along the coastline of Askelia. That's when it hit me.
But then again, the quality argument could be due to the fact that the game was ported from the original Xbox to a new system. That might have caused some degradation to the quality. Then you see the original cutscenes on the PC. Oh, good god, it looks like it's filmed from a potato. Or at least looks like something from the Dreamcast days. And I have seen cutscenes from the Dreamcast that still hold up to this day. Yeah, that must be a porting issue. Anyways, let's move on to gameplay.
So unity will be our new goal. We fight. The angel hissed.
When it comes to the gameplay aspect of Sudeki, there are three main elements that unify it into one JRPG-inspired experience. Those three being the combat, the puzzles, and exploring and looting from ancient sites of cultural importance. But many other elements are thrown in too, like the chapter-ending boss fights and the all-important shopping trips to hoard all those healing and skill potions, as well as leveling up those weapons and armor. For about 95% of the time, you'll be doing a crap ton of fighting, either in the classical yet annoying random encounters way, or in chapter-concluding boss fights. I mean, it is an ARPG after all, with anime and JRPG influences. And whilst you are exploring and traversing the landscape, you may come across these large circular expanses in the middle of nowhere. Almost like arenas. Once you see this area or you step into them, yeah, you are going to be doing some fighting. And what shall you be fighting? Well, nearly everything from which Mother Nature shall give to us. Such as armoured warriors, wolves spelt incorrectly, scarecrows, insect devil things, giant crabs. Right, I'll be honest with you, they are the most annoying creature to fight in the game by far. They only get damage if hit in the rear. If not, they take forever to take down, and they will always crit lock you and knock you down continuously with those stupid fucking charges, thusly wasting time, potions, and the lives of your party members. Seriously, fuck these crustaceans, more difficult than Haiku. Anyway, continuing on, small Cthulhu people, farting ogres, robots, and many other fantastical monsters to slaughter in their hundreds. If you do not like any of my descriptions of these beasts, please consult the pause menu bestiary. which is the skull icon. Now, the combat within the game is in real time, inspired from such games of the past such as Onimusha 2, Devil May Cry and the Dynasty Warriors series, with team member management thrown in as well. Though personally, I would rather call it babysitting rather than management. This being the case due to the fact the AI is not very smart. Yes, there is AI templates for attacking, defending or retreating. They will usually just attack and have zero preservation for their own lives. So, it is recommended to constantly keep an eye on them and change party members when necessary by using the bumper buttons on the controller or the tab key on the keyboard. You control the 4 main party members individually in combat, and each of them are a designated class with different abilities and purposes in battle, as well as different super special powerful attacks and buffs. By pressing the Y button on the controller, or the Q key on the keyboard, you'll open the quick menu where you can change weapons, take potions, and use in-combat abilities, which have awesome destructive power and benefits when used, along with the elaborate and grandiose cutscenes to boot. Tao, being a fighter, focuses on the attack using his bastard sword to destroy his opposition, and focuses on defense and attack buffs for his party. Ailish, the wizard of the group, is one of the support members of the group. Though she uses staffs for attacking, her attack power is incredibly low. Yet her ability makes up for this with everything from powerful AoE attacks and powerful healing spells, which ironically, during the game's development, was bugged to kill Ailish after use. Something worth mentioning at least. Buki, the monk, focuses on quick attacks with her gauntlet blades, focuses on attack-specific party buffs, and finally, my boy Elko, the gunslinging scientist who pretty much has no identifiable class, yet his abilities alone make up for it. Like Ailish, he is one of the support group, never to be used on the head-on attack, but unlike Ailish, whose abilities are for either healing or keeping the enemy at bay, Elko's abilities are more for the attack and increasing the attack power of his party members. Through your playthrough of the game, you may find that you will be using some abilities a bit more than others, but the game encourages it, so long as you have the potions to refill the SP gauge, so do not be ashamed to spam those abilities. Milk those abilities until it turns to cheese. When you control members of your party in battle, you will notice several things, besides the camera being an absolute bitch and either getting stuck on terrain or not facing the right way, especially when playing as Elko or Ailish. Honestly, how come games during this time period have terrible camera controls? Anyway, when playing as Buki or Tao, the gameplay transitions to a third-person hack-and-slash affair like the games mentioned earlier. Using the X and A buttons, or the left and right mouse buttons, you will perform light and heavy attacks respectively. Yet, like with most games, if you press the 2 buttons in certain combinations, Buki and Tao will perform certain combos that will either cancel out an enemy's attack, hit for a significant amount of enemy HP, or stun and add more elemental debuffs to your target. However, if you try to input the attack combo too quickly, it will cancel out, so try and apply it to a rhythm. Of course, as fighters, you will be taking damage, so it is a good idea to block or at least get the hell out of the way. And you could do that, of course, by using the right trigger, or spacebar. Holding said buttons will allow you to block any attacks unless hit from the rear. But if you flick the left thumbstick, or one of the WASD keys by the way, you will roll out of the way, useful for getting the hell out of the way. But as soon as you gain control of either Elko or Ailish, the combat transitions from a barbaric hack-and-slash affair in third person to a more sophisticated and honourable first-person shooter. They may not take face-to-face combat very well, but they are very quick on their feet, so use it. Shoot and strafe your way to victory. Both characters have different types of guns to use throughout the game. Yeah, Ailish uses staffs, but I'm still going to call them guns. I mean, they're rifles, basically. These include standard rapid-fire shooters that do little damage, a powerful charge-up shot used against harder opponents, 3-round shooters that increase in damage with each successive hit, and another which adds elemental or debuff add-ons to each successive attack. Now, based on what reviews I have read and comments on this game I have investigated from players reminiscent about the past, I can see why this game is remembered fondly for its combat. The combat is intense, with many enemies and allies fighting with you, creating a sense of chaos. And yet it is high octane, being fast-paced and colourful and vibrant with the many stages you will be fighting across, and with the various abilities being used. Yet it has quite a few problems within the game. While some are just more nitpicks from yours truly, others I think would absorb the fun out of anyone's experience with the game. For one, enemies have an obvious and irritating tendency of constantly swarming one target. That, as well as enemies having another irritating tendency of stopping your own attacks mid-movement, but you can also do the same to them as well. Another irritation is that every arena battle you fight in will respawn after leaving and re-entering the arenas. Obviously this is for helping players to grind their way up with their characters, but still fuck off with that. Then there are boss fights. Yay, boss fights, the definition of grind and extreme repetition. Boss fights in Sudeki are, personally speaking that is, one of the least fun aspects of the entire game. Not only because of previously discussed reasons, but also due to the fact that boss fights are so easily telegraphed, making it so obvious when to attack the boss and when to get out of the way of their own attacks. And these boss fights drag on, up to half an hour for most battles, whereas the final boss fight takes about 45 minutes to finish. Just damn, dude! Yet not everything in Sudeki involves violence. It mostly ends up leading you towards the inevitable and bloody outcome. Outside of combat and during those fleeting moments of peace and harmony, the player and their party will traverse the various landscapes of Sudeki, and, along the way, you'll discover treasures, shops at the various outposts and towns, and level up your equipment with more buffs such as more damage, immunities, or elemental add-ons, and ask you to talk to the various peoples in the land you come across as side quests. Most of the time they will just be retrieval or extermination quests. Even though the map upon first impressions may make players think that they're about to enter an open world ARPG, you are sadly mistaken, even though I personally have no problems with the design. The main map designs for Sudeki are of a semi-linear configuration, and while you get to marvel at the artistic majesty of the landscapes and skyboxes on your journey to your objectives, do not expect Red Dead Redemption 2 levels of map design. You know the saying, all roads lead to Rome? This game's map design is just that. Stick to the roads in this game and you will always end up on one of the main settlements in whatever map you're in. And if you get lost, there are signs that will point you to your desired destination. But if you decide to explore off the beaten track a little, 5 times out of 5 it will lead you towards the potential treasures and the joy of puzzles. Quite simple ones, mind you. Luckily for you, your party members will have abilities to help themselves and you to acquire more material wealth. Tal, being the buff soldier boy, will use his masculine strength to move containers or platforms and reveal new passageways or make new ones of his own. Ailish will uncover new passages, crates, or chests with her magic eye. Buki uses her gauntlet claws to climb and traverse various cliff faces, usually identifiable to traverse due to the said cliff faces being covered in vines or standout textures. And for my boy Elko, you can platform from platform to platform by flying with his jetpack. Platforming. And what are your prizes for participating in this overexertion of energy? Generally, small amounts of money, potions, orbs which increase your stats of might, magic and your health, on occasion some weapons, or sometimes nothing and scolding you for expecting more loot from a chest you have already found. But no need to worry, you will find crates of loot all over the place, in the wilds, almost like a UN misdrop or just after an earthquake. If you see them, go over there and kick it, punch it, roundhouse kick, and click it open. It pays open to do crime in Sudeki if you really think about it. And of course, it would not be a fantasy game without exploring some dungeons, dwelling in mysterious ruins, solving oddly placed puzzles, and looting valuables from ancient times. These dungeons will be the main source in this game for several things. You will always delve into a dungeon during one of the main quests to the point where it almost becomes formulaic. Luckily, the dungeons will change aesthetically over the course of the game, either exploring a sacred temple to the furry people, or delving into a lair of a siren. Artistic, sound and level design will always change to fit the setting and never cease to be interesting to explore. Oh, and these maps are quite sprawling. Nothing too large to get yourself lost, but they are very expansive with many different floors and a plethora of rooms and such to explore for more material wealth. Props to Climax for making such interesting dungeon maps. Yet within these hallowed halls, these places are not only teeming with various expendable types of vermin, but is filled with strange and amazingly simple puzzles, as well as concluding boss battles. The many puzzles you will find throughout the game are quite simple. I mean, I am not complaining or anything, since this game was made for new as well as experienced RPG players in mind, but these puzzles are extremely simple to solve, mostly involving moving platforms, using the character's main strengths to progress or traverse, and mostly pulling switches or using the resources available to you to solve the puzzle. It usually will not take too long to solve. Then you have the boss battles at the end of each dungeon. They're nothing special, I'll be honest. Just watch their attack patterns, find vulnerabilities in their animations, and just endure whilst watching your inventory, and then your gold. And your rewards for these endeavours into the dungeons? Not only the satisfaction of defeating your enemy in honourable battle, but also the chance of getting some of the best weapons and armour you can acquire. And that is satisfactory enough.
Simdav kakurama ginamas kumra inites. Now we fly with you.
Now your eyes shall be opened.
Oh,
See how it drains the color away.
keep watching the bow, and you will see where.
Story time now, my fellow subjects. So, gather around and let us delve into the legend of Sudeki. Oh, by the way, spoilers from this point onward. I mean, it is a 17-year-old game, but if you wish to keep the game unspoiled, go to here. Got the message? Alright then, it's story time. So it has been roughly 1,000 years since the sibling gods Tetsu and Haigu had their last temper tantrum, and the resultant war split the world of Sudeki into the two worlds of Heskylia and Ecloria, with the afterlife kind of drifting in between awkwardly. And since that time, there is another war going on between the worlds of Heskylia and Ecloria, with Eclorian warriors fighting in some sort of berserker rage and summoning lightspawn creatures into Heskylia. In response to this, Queen Lucica has built a peace shield to defend her kingdom. The shield is nearly ready, but 3 crystals are needed to power the device. And it is here that the players are introduced to the game. The players will take control of our 4 main characters whose destinies are intertwined into the fates of the worlds of Sudeki. Tal, the warrior of the group, is a no-nonsense career soldier who joined the elite Illumina Guard after his family had been killed during a Eclorian raid. He also has a dysfunctional relationship with his father, who is also the drill sergeant of the guard, so that is not awkward enough.
Oh, you're a born survivor, aren't you? I mean to say, you survived when Private Abraham didn't. You survived when Officer Brashhill didn't. And of course, you survived when your brother didn't!
Ailish, a master wizard despite a young age, as well as the daughter to the queen, has a rather sheltered and pompous attitude to the outside world.
Ooh, lucky me. I get to spend all day in a village full of old men. You must have been very bored growing up.
Yet, she is determined to prove herself to a rather dismissive mother.
I could do with your help. Mother will soon forget how angry she is when her prodigal daughter returns with another crystal.
Buki, the monk and religious anthropomorph, sees a mission to obey the rules of the gods and to protect their people, as well as protecting their holiest place in Sudeki, the Temple of Mo at Shidanimo. And lastly, Elko, a young yet brilliant scientist under the orders of the Queen to build the peace shield and find the crystals. A questioning personality who denies the ideas of religion and the role of the gods.
I have to say that I don't understand your religion either. As a scientist, it goes against my nature to admit that there are some things that simply defy explanation.
Without knowing how much of a role he will play in Tetsu's plans for Sudeki's reunification. Tal is first introduced, sent into Illumina's countryside with a small squad at the behest of his father to destroy a raiding force of Eclorian raiders who are seen to have the ability to use lightspawn creatures, fight with every dirty trick in the book, and show no respect to the rules of engagement. But after putting them raiders down, and during a battle with a farting ogre, the world suddenly freezes and a strange crystal man with wings appears, giving him a warning of future dangers. He leaves as quickly as he arrived, but not before blessing Tal with a kick-ass sword and kasplatting the ogre. Yeah, that guy is Tetsu. Him from before? And he'll show up quite a few more times to the other protagonists throughout the story. Why? Well, I'll tell you later. Continuing, Tal arrives at New Brightwater and retrieves Ailish to escort her home, whilst killing more Eclorians on the way. And not even a few minutes after brushing off his first flirt from Ailish and verbal abuse from his drunk father, is Tal, accompanied by my boy Elko, sent to the Temple of Shidanimo and to retrieve that crystal for safekeeping. Now, wishing to prove herself to the Queen, the player now controls Ailish and Buki, everyone's favourite characters for many reasons, braves the roads to the temple. And here, the temple seems to be infested with vicious spiders, and even the temple guardian, Gara, seems inflicted with madness and must be pushed down. But with her defeat, her lair starts to collapse, so the gang retrieve the crystal and using a conventionally placed teleporter travels to a new plane, the Realm of Shadows, whilst being watched in the shadows by a mysterious figure, a realm of undeath, mystery, and suddenly long boss fights against the undead warriors of Shidanimo. The gang defeats the warden of the realm, Varric's Law, and retrieve the Stone of the Worlds, which allows the gang to teleport anywhere in the world the player has discovered. Upon returning the crystal to Illumina Castle, the gang are once again sent forth to Transentia to retrieve another crystal. Here, we meet up with Elko's old teacher, Professor Hayton, bantering with his old student, and in regular RPG fashion, solve another problem that is conveniently there. It seems the main core of the Transcendian network, Kren, has fallen ill with Skynet syndrome, and wishes to wipe out all organic life with his army of robots. So the gang delves into the main core and initiates a hard reset on Kren. By force. And having retrieved the crystal, which was used to power Kren by the way, the professor gives a tip that more crystals have been found in the world of Ecloria, Ascilia's mirror world. And so, the gang teleport to Ecloria to retrieve the last crystal for the Peace Shield. Professor Hayton is forced to command Alt plus F4 by an unknown assailant. Anyways, welcome to Ecloria, where it is permanently night, ghosts do not know a thing about privacy, and there's a place called Devil's Belch. And your first quest is to kill a siren, Nasaria the Siren, who was holding the town of Crystal Reef hostage. And after a great battle against the siren, and exploring one of the best thematically designed dungeons in the game, the group is suddenly captured by their mirrored selves. And with the meeting of Queen Caprine, the hows, whys, and your overall quest begins to unravel. Firstly, the 4 heroes you control are the ancestors or coordinates of the 4 heroes who defeated Haigu 1000 years ago, those heroes being Karistan, Olivites, Mo, and Libus, and it is these 4 heroes that are needed to help Tetsu with his goal of reuniting the world of Sudeki, and to rid his evil twin once and for all. And secondly, the Peace Shield is not a shield at all. It was a ruse this whole time to help Queen Lucica gain immortality. By using the crystals collected from your party, light energy is being drained from Ascilia to power the process of transferring Haigu's soul into the vessel of Lord Talos, earning the trust of Haigu to which the Queen would wish for immortality. And because of light energy being drained from Ecloria, the world is dying, and its inhabitants have been driven mad and into a bloodlust, hence the raids on Illumina. And to add to this, Ecloria is in the middle of a revolt with part of the army driven mad and desiring Caprine's removal. Yet, despite all this information, Elko refuses to help, refusing to hear what the Queen is truly doing. And so, whilst Tal and his mirrored homies subdue a revolt within the Eclorian army, Elko, egged on by Lord Talos, you know, that guy that killed the Professor earlier, steals Ecloria's crystal and returns to Illumina. It is only after Queen Lucica and Talos tell Elko's plans right into his face.
You wish to raise Haigu?
Once Haigu stalks the world again, I shall reign as the immortal queen of Illumina.
There is no turning back, Elko.
Are we the baddies?
Does Elko realise what he has done? Sabotaging his own projects and becoming a wanted man? Elko flees with his wife, Tilly.
Stop! You violated the law!
While the Illumina army spends more time trying to kill Tilly rather than the man who is armed, dangerous, and trying to kill him. But after a rupture in the space-time continuum and re-killing the Illumina army again, Tilly is safe and Elko rejoins his party and brings the fight to Haigu and bring his dastardly plan to the end. Having merged their mirror selves together and Haigu finally emerging to throw ahead of someone— oh god, it's the Queen! And now, the final battle is among us. The heroes have grinded their way to power and perfection for this moment, to finally kill an evil god. So it is, the heroes of Sudeki versus Haigu. No, not really. It's only just Tal and Haigu. And I know, story-wise, Haigu wanted to settle a score with Tetsu, and Tal is the conduit to Tetsu, by the way, but still, no one else gets involved after all the hours you grinded to your heroes. Okay, and thus, the game ends with a very anticlimactic, personal preference, boss fight. And after 3 incarnations, fighting a boss that uses the same abilities for the next 45 minutes, Tal finally defeats and finally kills Haigu. And then it ends. Really? Just like that? No seeing the results of your adventures? No whatever happens to your party members montage? No teaser of some new threats from within the world of Sudeki that has been reunified from your hero's actions? Civil war? Anthropomorph separatists? Haigu cultists? Succession crisis? Tetsu was a prick all along? No. Nothing.
Gee, thanks.
Well, what a way to end the review. What a bit of a downer about the ending. So, this means I hated the game then, most reviewers are probably thinking. Luckily for you, no. No, I do not hate this game. In fact, I loved most of my time playing this time capsule of a game. Whilst I may not have enjoyed the boss fights for being very repetitive, as well as the fact that I found the story kind of predictable and some of the voice acting being incredibly subpar, everything else was great, or beautiful, or both. The music, not the combat music, except ironically the boss fight themes, the beautiful visuals and the chaotic nature of combat is a pleasure to behold. I can say with confidence that this is an easy recommendation, and since this game is on Steam for as cheap as £5, this game is a great steal at that price. Just bear in mind that this game was made in the mid-2000s, and do not expect a massive and grand map to traverse. So, this brings an end to another review, so stay tuned for more presentations and be sure to like what you see. Do not like? Well, I'll just feed you to my new war dogs I have. Anyway, stay tuned and have a good one.